You ever been told you don't belong in a room you paid to keep lit, chilled, and catered, and watched the laughter bounce off glasses you essentially bought? Have you ever stood still on purpose, letting an entire ballroom audition its bias, just to see who clapped for it? Here's the part they didn't expect. I didn't raise my voice, I raised the price. It was the Langford Club in Manhattan. Top floor private suite, all marble and glass. The kind of place that pretends it's about ideas while the napkins are embossed with a last name. Jazz tucked behind a curtain, oysters sliding by on trays, waiters wearing calm like a uniform. I came alone, no PR, no entourage, just my carry-on and my phone coral wrap dress because color is not a permission slip. If you'd walked past me that night, maybe you would have looked through me, not at me, like a window. Yeah, that happened. And it would have stayed a quiet insult if somebody hadn't made it a public sport. She did it with a smile that expected applause. You don't look like anyone who belongs in this room. Charlotte Holston, the billionaire's daughter, said it loud enough to be generous, with the disrespect chin high, like boredom was her heritage. A few guests laughed with their eyes down, the kind of laugh that wants to be invisible and still be counted. A man at the bar choked on his sympathy and swallowed it. A woman lifted her champagne and didn't say a word. Tell me honest, if it were you, what would you have done? Clap back, walk out, or do what I did, which was nothing at all? Doing nothing is not being nothing. I learned that the hard way a decade earlier. Back then, I was the only black woman pitching a first fund in rooms like this. And the favorite word they handed me was inspiring, the kind of souvenir that goes straight to a drawer. You know what I mean? So I stopped collecting compliments and started collecting leverage. I built Axiom Capital deal by deal, quietly, deliberately, no headlines for posture, just term sheets, covenants, and an operations lead named Carla, who can thread a needle while the building is on fire. When Holston Holdings needed a lifeline for their venture pipeline 3 years ago, everyone else said, too messy, too late, too risky. I said, show me your governance, show me the conduct clause, show me who owns the keys to the servers. Then I wired $2.7 billion and slept fine. So that night, when Charlotte turned me into a punchline, I let the room take the bait. I wanted to see who they were when they thought I was nobody. Grayson Wells, special advisor, perfect navy suit and policy smile, walked up like he'd been called to restore the furniture. Miss, this area is for active stakeholders only. Unless you're logistics or press, I'll need you to clear this perimeter. He saw a color, a dress, and a silence. He didn't see a signature on his NDA. My phone buzzed in my palm. Carla read file prepped. Want me to freeze comms? I tapped once back, not yet. That 2-word prayer, not yet, is what separates proof from performance. Wait. Across the room, a junior analyst was holding a tray and a tablet and a breath. I'd later learn her name, Kira. She squinted at the partner overview, then looked at me, then back to the tablet, like she was checking if truth had a typo. When her hand stopped shaking, she stepped forward, not loud, just present. Do you know who she is? She asked Grayson. He blinked, which was the smartest thing he did that evening. Kira lifted the tablet. She's board level. Those 3 words traveled faster than gossip because receipts fly. Phones came out not to film, to search. Ava Monroe Axiom. Ava Monroe Holston. Coral dress at a summit in Singapore. A list I never bragged about. Someone whispered by the bar. She has 2.7 in exposure here. Another voice corrected. She is the exposure. Charlotte rolled her eyes like none of it mattered. Please, she could have photoshopped that. You people fall for anything. The room didn't get louder, it got heavier. That phrase sits in the air like humidity. I didn't have to make a speech. I just had to stop protecting them from their echo. Grayson signaled security because when assumption fails, procedure rushes in wearing a tie. 2 guards arrived, professional neutral scanning for the safest mistake to make. Charlotte closed the distance and did the one thing her training should have prevented. 2 fingers on my shoulder. Small movement, big footprint. She didn't just touch me, she touched a transcript. I didn't slap her hand, I leaned in enough to mark the moment. You just walked into liability, I said, calm, like a door that knows its own lock. She smiled the way people smile at what they think is bluff. What are you going to do? Call your supervisor? No, I said, tapping my phone. I'm going to call your father's board. Phase 1 triggered. Carla's voice slid through my earpiece like ice water. External comms frozen. Internal escalation underway. Red file sent to Holston legal PR board chair. Timestamp marked. You could feel it before you saw it. Holston's equity dashboard blinked out. The event's comms loop stalled. The shared cloud for Q4 campaign assets threw a 503. Screens that had been busy flattering egos suddenly became mirrors. Grayson stared at his phone like more tapping could change code. That's not possible. Which is what you say when the rules you like stop liking you back. Let them hear it, not film it, I mouthed to a content guy named Keith who'd started recording. He lowered his phone. A real journalist, Harper Lynn, kept hers up because news is allergic to secrets. The taller guard looked at his device, then at me, then back at his device like it had betrayed him. Credentials revoked, he said quietly. He wasn't reading mine. He was reading his. I stepped to the center of the marble and introduced myself like a formality. My name is Ava Monroe. I'm co-founder and managing partner at Axiom Capital. For the last 3 years, I've served as lead investor and controlling stakeholder in the Holston Joint Venture Initiative. I kept my voice even because volume is not a replacement for control. I approved the funding for this building. I underwrote the valuation of the R&D wing. I signed the agreement that paid for the logo on your champagne napkins. Grayson's mouth opened to object. You signed my NDA 2 years ago, I said gently. You just didn't know it was me. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. A side screen woke up lined with a secure call. Raymond Holston, the father, appeared with a voice that had forgotten how to be casual. What the hell just happened? Who authorized this? The system answered for me. Axiom route clearance logged. Action full withdrawal. Authorized Ava Monroe. Charlotte stared at the screen, then at me, then at the future. You can't cancel a joint venture like that. There are clauses. I don't need to cancel it, I said. I own the clause that does. Governance beats optics. Every time. The jazz slid into silence without being told. Someone at the bar sat down by accident. Harper's live stream climbed past 60,000 hearts beating in sync. And then like a slow thaw, applause appeared in the corner of the room, one woman in navy, another near the doors, a handful of men who had been quiet a decade too long. I didn't smile. I wasn't there for applause. I was there for clarity. Let me pause for a second. Do you think that was too harsh, too fast, too much? Or do you think respect should have a price so clear you don't have to haggle for it every time you enter the building? If it were you, would you have educated them for free or charged the lesson to the right account? I walked to the mezzanine, the hall that wraps the glass like a clean signature. Manhattan pulsed below like a circuit obeying a new command. My phone buzzed once. Carla board acknowledgement confirmed. Internal campaign suspended. Portal open for final signature. I opened the red file app. 3 words at the top. Execute total exit. No drama, no countdown. Just a biometric scan and a confirm. Servers hummed in Singapore, Frankfurt, New York. The digital bridge between Axiom and Holston dissolved line by line. Shared credentials died with a polite error message. Contracts whose life depended on my continued consent recognized they no longer had it. It didn't feel like a slam. It felt like a lock clicking. Downstairs, the whispers leveled up to questions the PR team wasn't trained to answer. A mid-level manager said, "We just lost the back end." An associate said, "The dashboard is gone." Grayson's phone flashed red again. Access denied. He looked up at me with the face of a man meeting his own assumptions in daylight. The guard stepped back because the risk had shifted away from me and toward anyone who tried to escalate. Kira stood with her tablet like a shield and a spine like a promise. If you missed the twist, it wasn't that I had the power. It was that I waited until the room told on itself before using it. Let me be clear about what this was not. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't even personal. It was governance. The JV agreement had a conduct breach clause for officers, agents, or representatives acting under the brand in ways that created material reputational risk. It gave the controlling stakeholder, me, the right to suspend co-branded communications, lock shared analytics, and freeze pipelines financed by my capital until the board acknowledged containment. If you've ever read a term sheet, you know those words. If you haven't, write this down. Money is loud, but paper is louder. Learn to hear paper move. I heard the critiques the next day, the think pieces using words like ruthless and overkill, the panels asking if a touch on the shoulder should cost an ecosystem a quarter. So here's my answer. The touch wasn't the cause, it was the symptom. The disease is a culture that can accept a black woman funding your stage and still try to seat her in general admission. Courtesy doesn't cure that. Accountability does. And yes, I funded a transition pool for teams that were caught in the freeze because leadership is not a costume, it's a responsibility. I didn't publish that part. Receipts don't need applause either. On the way down in the elevator, I looked at my reflection, the way you look at a stranger on a late train, and finally admit she's you, steady, shoulder low, breath even. The lobby doors opened, and August wrapped the city like warm velvet. My driver had the sedan ready, back door open, no questions. I stood there for a beat, letting the building cool behind me, because rooms lose heat slowly when arrogance walks out. A woman approached, eyes clear. "They'll talk about it," she said, "they'll twist it. But those of us who know, we know." I nodded, not in agreement, in acknowledgement. "Let them talk," I said. Talking is all they ever had. Then I got in the car and shut the door softly. Power that knows itself doesn't need to slam. In the back seat, my phone lit up like a trading floor. Requests to go exclusive, offers to sit on panels about leadership and equity and grace, headlines stacking metaphors like it was a contest. I ignored most of them. Carla sent one more text. "All done. Analysts are calling it the quietest coup in venture history. Your move." My move was simple. I messaged the board chair, confirm closeout, indemnities preserved, debrief Monday. Then I put the phone face down and watched Manhattan flicker in the glass, like it was happy to keep going without permission. Why am I telling you this? Because the story isn't just mine. It's about rooms and who gets to own them and what it costs to stop begging for a chair and start owning the lights. The next time someone decides you look like a +1 in a place you underwrote, remember, you don't have to perform your credentials for people who are committed to not believing them. You can be patient. You can collect your data, watch who flinches and who stands, and then decide who gets to stay. That choice doesn't come free. It is paid in years of work that can stand on the sidewalk with you unbothered while a ballroom realizes its oxygen was rented. Here's the picture I carry with me, maybe you will too. A choral dress in a room that thought silence meant permission. A father on a screen shouting at a system that was simply obeying the document he signed. A junior analyst choosing truth over comfort. A set of doors that open without ceremony. That's it. No fireworks. No speech designed to trend. Just a quiet correction made with the same steadiness it took to build the leverage. So tell me, do you think what I did was fair, or necessary, or both? If it were you, would you have stayed and educated? Would you have walked out and kept your money in the room, or would you have pulled the plug and let consequence do the teaching? Drop your city in the comments so I know where you're watching from. Then tell me your answer, not the safe one, the real one. And if you've ever had a room make you small, share that too, what you did, what you wish you'd done, what you'll do next time. Hit subscribe if you want more stories that don't just sound good, but ask something of you. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Argue with me if you must. I can take it. The market learned how to spell respect that night. I'm curious if we're ready to spell it outside the ballroom.